Welcome to Keep Sweet, the Positive World podcast. I am your host, Joshua Gonzalez. And on today's episode, we have a wonderful, amazing interview with an artist friend of mine, an actor friend of mine, who has faced a lot of hardships and struggles in his journey, but he is also making his dreams come true, and it's really amazing. So stay tuned for that. He's amazing. But before we do that, please welcome to the podcast, Matt Tolbert. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
Matt's here again for all you people. So, Matt, I have a wonderful, good news story for you that I'm excited to tell you about right now. New York Railroad conductor finds and returns $107,000 worth of engagement rings to a jeweler who lost them on the New York Railroad. Isn't that crazy? Did I say that right? So somebody lost $100,000 worth of jewelry. A jeweler lost. Mm-hmm. They were engagement rings that, like, the jeweler had, and he lost them. And the railroad conductor found them and returned them to the jeweler. Okay.
How did he know?
I'll give you a little more context. Okay. Jonathan Yellowday. What a cool last name. His last name is Yellowday.
It's pretty nice.
So Jonathan Yellowday, an assistant conductor with the Long Island Railroad.
Now he's an assistant.
I'm just reading the thing. Was on the 6:11 p.m. train from Penn Station to Port Washington on Friday when he stumbled upon a yellow plastic bag filled with dozens of engagement rings. Dozens of them. So like 36 engagement rings, I'm imagining. He got on the next train back. Oh, I can't read. My mic's in the way. He got on the next train back to Penn Station, where he handed them over to the police, who were able to return them to the jeweler, who was relieved by the Good Samaritan's Act and restored his livelihood and faith in humanity.
How do they know who they belong to?
I mean, if you go and you hand 36 engagement rings to the police, and then you have someone go into the police like, "Hey, I'm a jeweler. I have certificates for these things that I lost." It's not that hard to match up who lost.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the moral of the story is, big shout out and big, wonderful, awesome congrats to Jonathan Yellowday, who did the very right thing and turned in these rings. Because, he could have sold them on the black market for money.
Well, he was also on the job when they probably have rules. He didn't want to get fired. But, I guess he could have quit his job with all that.
Not with $100,000. I mean, you can't get market price on the black market, I imagine. For $100,000 to quit your job for what? A year, and then you have to get another job?
Well, maybe he could find a better job. He can,
It's fine. You know what? Good job, Jonathan. We are not discussing what if he had taken the rings. This isn't.
Yeah, it's a good on him.
Yeah, it's a good on him. Good, Jonathan Yellowday, for inspiring us all to do the right thing when we find $100,000 worth of rings. So, before we get to the interview, I want to say thank you to everyone for supporting the podcast, as always. Last week's episode, Matt, this is a trend. Last week's episode reached my goal of 50 listens in the first day. The only two episodes to do that were the episodes where I didn't have an interview. It was just you and me talking about our lives. So maybe that's what the people want.
Well, that's why I'm here every week. But thank goodness I have the day off today. I'm going to let you two just chat away.
Yay.
And I'll see y'all another time.
All right. Yay. All right. We are recording. Great. Hi, everyone. Today's guest is a Brierley Resident Acting Company member at the Tony Award-winning Dallas Theater Center. Please welcome to the podcast, Chris Ramirez. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, everyone. Hi, Josh. Man, it's good to see your face. I just miss you so much. I wish I could hug you.
I know. Soon.
Over Zoom.
I'm actually fully vaccinated as of yesterday. So the next time we are in Texas,
amazing.
Or the next time you are in New York. I know. Is it happening?
I also am fully vaxxed. Yes. So,
oh my God. So just
that means that we are both, we're both in the fully vaxxed club. And if things line up correctly, then we could actually see each other and make this hug very real.
I can't wait. It will happen soon. I know. So, Chris, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you are, who you do, where you come from?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. The formative years of my life were in a barrio in Dallas, and I'm the youngest of three. And a family of five. Grew up in a one-bedroom apartment in our little neighborhood, and then eventually moved to another part of Dallas named Irving, and started doing theater there, and then went on to study theater performance at Baylor University, and then after that went on to have my career, and here I am.
Yay!
And of course, a highlight of all those years is that I met you.
Yay!
And got to be a part of your wedding and everything.
I know.
Big highlight.
That was a wonderful thing. And also just like the reason why we connected too is because we were in a very particular space as two Latinos who grew up poorer than the people we were around. And we related so much to each other, and we held on to each other tightly throughout some of those formative years. So you mentioned you got into the performance and theater world around high schoolish, right? How was it for you? Like when did that start? How did that develop? And then you ended up going to college for theater performance. So when did you make that decision? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I actually, man, I always had a yearning to perform, but unfortunately, one of the things about lower income environments and school districts specifically is that the arts is one of the first things to go, and one of the first things to just be non-existent, quite frankly. So in elementary school, when we would do school projects, I started realizing that I like to be a little bit more elaborate than my classmates when it came to reading stories out loud and making presentations. So I wouldn't say that the seed was kind of there in just doing class presentations. And then middle school, similarly, there was no theater program. But I would just get it out of my system through emceeing talent shows and all that stuff. And then when I got to high school, then in Irving ISD, then they actually did have theater departments, and I joined, and almost, I know it sounds like super cheesy, but I knew immediately when I did my first show my freshman year of high school, which was Damn Yankees, I played Zahovic. I knew from that exact second, I was meant to do this for the rest of my life. Like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And I'm very fortunate for me to have known that at the tender age of 14, to know, this is my contribution to this earth. And there was never a doubt in my mind from that point forward that this was going to be what I was going to do. Always, and that's, it's my calling. So I did that for 4 years in high school, and then, like I said, when it came time to look for college, it was like, okay, so I'm going to do theater. That's the only thing that was happening in my brain. So I auditioned to Baylor University, and the theater department accepted me, and then the school did not accept me. Womp. Because I did not have good enough SAT scores, whatever. Because here's the thing, and I guess it kind of backfired on me. But when I was in high school, I was like, listen, my passion is doing plays and making theater art. So I'm going to just take regulars and focus on creating art. Well, that doesn't look good on a college application, being in all regulars, and that totally did not do well. That backfired on me. So they did not accept me. But thankfully, the theater department wanted me enough that they were able to talk to the school, and I was able to attend some summer classes to appease them, and I got in.
Yay! And so, just a little bit of a shout out there to broken education system in America.
Oh my gosh, yes,
but
literally.
You got in, and you studied. You finished your degree, and now you're a professional artist. So, boom, we win. What is it about performing and being on stage and telling these stories that really drew you? I mean, you said you knew after the first show that it was what you were meant to do. What was it about that? Was it just what was it? I won't even speculate.
Yeah, and again, it's, my first show was Damn Yankee, so this isn't like August Osage County. Like, this isn't something that's like, God, what a compelling story. You know what I mean? But
Now I want to see you in a production
just,
of August Osage County.
oh, please, let's all break shit. I throw up a plate. Yeah, I mean, I truly think that it was, it's that intangible feeling that you get, that ritualistic feeling of unity and connection that a performer feels with an audience, that you can't, that just doesn't happen elsewhere. You know what I mean? And getting to perform and be on stage and literally feel, because we were very lucky. Our high school auditorium held like 2,000 seats, 1,500 seats.
Wow.
Which is huge for a school auditorium, and we would sell that baby out. So like, we would have, like, at the age of 15, we'd be performing for like 1,500 people in an auditorium, and to feel 1,500 people's energy like being thrown at you and vice versa. I mean, talk about like addiction, and you know what I mean? And like a real natural high. And then, and that was just like a taste of it. But then as I studied more and I got to do different plays, then came the, oh my gosh, like this is like beyond that cool, fun connection. And oh my God, they just like laughed at something I said, and that, wow, we were really entertaining them. And then came in the next level of artistry of, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful story and meaningful thing that we're getting to do. And I really think that we are having an effect on this audience in a very different way. Yes, I mean, I guess, sure, yeah, they're being entertained, but more importantly, they're actually leaving with questions and with conversation, which is super important. And having conversation is like one of my favorite things. Like, I'm one of those annoying people, like, we go see a movie and then I'm like, yeah, let's just talk about it. And
Oh,
then, like,
yeah.
we talk about it for
always.
Ever. You know what I mean?
It is
always.
It is a full debrief.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I love
yes.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so there with you on the, like, it is that high, that adrenaline high, and then you're like, oh wait, I get to actually impact the way people think and move about the world and how they live their lives by telling these stories, and it's something that's so special and can help the world in such a better way. I love it so much. So you graduated, you got your theater degree, you went to have your whole theater career in Dallas, which is a wonderful market for performing. And most people, like everywhere else, you have your day jobs. You were like, I love theater so much, I'm going to teach it for my day job because, like, you need to make the money. So you started out as a high school theater teacher at a great program, and your presence at that high school was felt, made shockwaves. Like, it was very clear you were doing amazing things in that theater department. It was winning awards, advancing through the one-act play competition, which is like the competition in Texas for everyone who doesn't know. There is a theater competition in Texas, and it's a huge deal.
A huge deal.
And Chris basically was akin to like the new head football coach going in and whipping the team into shape to go win state, but for the theater department. So that was fun. Then an event happened. We won't get into it, whatever, past drama, legalities, whatever. An event happened. And in my humble opinion, I mean, it's just like anything that happens in high school when you're dealing with high schoolers, it was fine. But you were unfortunately thrown under the bus a little bit and kind of a little bit of a scapegoat for the school, which is fine, I guess, if that's how they want. But long story short, you left that job. You were no longer there. And so I know you had wanted to be a theater educator. You care so much. You wanted to pass on this knowledge to a new generation. You want, like, that is a part of your passion, is education and passing on this art form. I know that whole time was rough for you. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what that was like. Like, you woke up that first Monday or whenever, and you weren't driving to the school that morning to see your students. How was that for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because this whole ordeal was actually happening in the midst of the When I Play competition. So as Josh had mentioned, this is a huge deal in Texas. Essentially, every high school in Texas competes in this one act play competition, and there are 6 rounds, and it comes down to the final 8. Well, this whole mess happened in round 3 of 6. So that means that I left my students in the middle of the competition. So they still had, they had to go on and compete without me, without their teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and the district not telling them where he was. So I am a very, very positive thinking person. I think that's where that's a reason why I've gotten where I am in life.
That's why you're on this
because
podcast.
I'm an optimistic person. So honestly, when this was happening, that first Monday, I was like, oh, cool. Hey, I get a rest at home. Like, I'll be back any day now.
Mhm.
I'll be back any day now. You know
so,
what I
so
mean?
like there was, I didn't realize that there was a while when you didn't know whether you were going to be gone permanently or you were going to be back. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I was on an administrative
Sure,
leave,
sure, sure.
so and they didn't give me a time date. They said it could be 2 days, 3 days, a week, whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Until they made like a final decision. So I was just like, hey, I could be back any day now, whatever. So I was just trying to remain positive, and at the that week, my kids they performed without me, and I was like, well, it was a good run. Getting to the 4th round is pretty damn cool. And then they advanced without me. And I was like, oh my God, this is like insane. You know what I mean? I wasn't there. So that's when when the frustration kind of started kicking in, like, oh, I gotta be in there, and then the 5th round wasn't for 2 weeks after that. So 3 weeks into my administrative leave, I remember I finally started to feel like, I remember just driving one time, just feeling angry about the situation, and feeling upset that I had voicemails from my fellow teachers and some students, like, just crying, asking where I was, why I wasn't able to talk to them, just confused. And I just remember being so angry. And then finally the district called me in, and they let me know that, the final decision, which was I could either resign or take it up to the board or whatever, which I had no chance taking it to the board because my contract as a 3rd-year teacher was paper thin. Honestly, there was no point. So honestly, when I resigned, it was like a strange weight off my shoulder, because it was like, at least now I have an answer. I'm no longer in this limbo, and I can look forward. So say what you will about belief system, but there was moments in between those 3 weeks that were truly, like, incredible in terms of the universe speaking to me, or whatever higher power you may believe in, or whatever. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'll never forget. I think it was the first or second day of administrative leave. I was sitting on the couch watching TV, and I randomly get a call from a number that I don't get. And it's a casting director from the Dallas Theater Center. And they're like, hey, we are workshopping a new play called Bella, an American tale, and an American folktale. And we're wondering if you'd be interested in workshopping this character, or if you're even available. And I looked, and I was like, what the heck? Like, of all the times to get this call, it's when I'm in a period, whatever. And I was like, yeah, let me know what you guys need, right? And then I didn't hear back for like 3 weeks or 2 weeks,
Sure.
and I was like, oh, I dropped the ball. I don't know. They moved on. And then what's eerie is 3 weeks later, after having a very heavy conversation with the district, within 30 seconds of my heavy conversation, I get a phone call, and it's that same casting agent. And he says, hey, I'm so sorry for the late response. I was on vacation. I'm back now. Are you still interested? Within 30 seconds, Josh. And I remember those 30 seconds happened, and I got that call, and I went, this is this is something. This
Yeah,
is a sign. This isn't coincidence. I felt the universe literally speaking to me.
100%.
And I said yes. And then I think the way it timed out, the next day I resigned from the district. And because I resigned, that means that I had another 2 months of school year that I wasn't going to go to work. So I said, I'm there when you need me. And I was able to go do the daytime rehearsals and work with an amazing cast of people and workshop that show. And that was a big step for me to be able to work with Dallas Theater Center in that workshop capacity and get to meet some people. And the timing couldn't have been any more perfect.
So, you've gone through this whole having to rethink your life moment. And,
Yeah.
as artists, one thing we are always trying to do, especially performers, is like, I mean, the goal is to not have a day job, technically, if you can help it. Although, like, sometimes day
Uh-huh.
jobs, if it's teaching in theater that you love, that's fine. That's great. Do it. Um, but we want to do as much performing as possible. And so, you know, were you like, what were your next career moves, or like even just like money moves? Were you worried about finding another job? Were you going to try to find another teaching job? Were you like,
Mm.
how was that planning for you?
Boy, yeah, that summer was
I
stressful.
can
So the good
imagine.
news, yeah. So the good news, not only are my kids like competing without me, but God bless them, they were so pissed off at how the district was treating me that they were like, okay, so you're going to treat Mr. Ramirez that way. We'll just make district history and make it to the finals. And those damn kids, they kicked ass all the way and advanced to the state finals as one of the final
Yay.
8 of the state with no director
That's
because they were just like that
insane.
motivated. So they got to perform in Bass Hall in front of thousands of people. Literally,
And
like
Bass Hall is
my
in
heart grew
Austin. It's like
in
it's like the
Austin.
biggest, hugest play festival in Texas, is going to see all the plays that
Yeah,
made it to state at Bass Hall. It's amazing.
yeah. So that was like, oh my god, that's amazing. But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, my contract ends like June 5th. But I'm still getting paid through August. So I was like,
Okay,
okay,
great.
so I've got till August. And then I need to figure out what I'm doing
Hmm.
financially. So I was applying for different school districts, and my resume spoke for itself. So a lot of school districts were interested. I received a letter in the mail that said that my teaching license was going to have a mark on it for like under investigation. And my lawyer, who I'm so thankful for, my lawyer was like, hey, I know this is going to be like hard to hear, but you may want to look at other line of work because a school
Oh
probably
my
isn't going to want to touch you with
God.
this. You know what I mean? So
That is
there were
just
times when I
so
had, I know,
ridiculous.
I know,
That
I
is
know,
so,
and I had just frustrating, right? Josh, I had,
yes,
I
I'm
had,
angry.
I had interviews, I had interviews lined up at like fine arts academies, like literally like scheduled, and then the principal is saying, "Ooh, sorry, we decided to go in another direction." The second that my teaching license was flagged, so I was like, "Great!" So not only did I just like lose my job over like dumb politics, but now I can't get a job anywhere else teaching. So what am I going to do? Then amazingly, again, the Dallas Theater Center posted that they were adding a brand new position entitled the education coordinator, and they're looking for people. Now, backstory, having grown up in Dallas, I was what they call a project discovery student. Project Discovery is a program that the Dallas Theater Center has, where they bus kids from some not as fortunate neighborhoods and schools, and they bus them to the theater center for free and they get to watch all the shows in their season, and they get to do workshops and meet the actors, and it's like life
Amazing.
changing. And I was one of those kids in high school. And honestly, when I my dream all through high school was I would watch the actors on the Dallas Theater Center stage, and I would like literally say, my dream is to be a company member like those people. Like that was like my
Oh
dream
yeah.
when I was like 15. Project Discovery is part of the education program. And when I saw that they were looking for an education coordinator that would be in charge of organizing Project Discovery, I was like, oh my God, I'm a Project Discovery kid. This program changed my life. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a part of this. And it's a way for
Mm-hmm.
me to still work with kids, which is I'm passionate about, and get to share
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it'd be working with a company that I've always wanted to work with. So,
Yeah, you were literally perfect.
so
It was made for you.
yeah,
Another universe reaching
yes.
out and saying, you know what, Chris, we got you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got you. We got you, boo. So, so I wrote my essay. I wrote my cover letter about how I was a Project Discovery kid, how it changed my life, how I'd love to be a part of the program. I went with the interview, and Morgana Wilborn, who is now literally like my sister, and I love her to death. She's the education manager. I don't know if that's her official title, but the
Yeah,
head of the
yeah,
education department.
yeah.
And and then I interviewed, and we hit it off immediately, and they hired me. And then, like the day after my last paycheck came in for from the district, I started working at the Dallas Theater Center's artistic floor, working education. And one of the best parts is one of the first things I did was I got I got the Project Discovery grant to my school so that I could still see my kids and they could come see our shows.
Yay.
And it was and it really was beautiful. But yeah, that was an incredible time to get to be on the other side of Project Discovery and education.
And it's also that thing that I want to point out too of like, you had your dream of being one of the resident acting company members, and we'll get there in a second. But if you have a dream and you want to work somewhere and you want to reach a certain position, you need to get your foot in the door, and you need to get close and around those people, know how they work, know how they think, work like them, think like that. And this was kind of a really great way into that. So
Absolutely.
we get you in the door, and you are lighting it up. Everyone is falling in love with you as they do. And so how do you go from there to becoming a resident acting company member?
I'm doing my job. I'm having a blast with the company, and I'm such a nerd that for years, I mean, this is even before, like when I was teaching, anytime I would drive by Dallas Theater Center, if I would always say, like, out loud, I'm going to work there one day. I'm going to perform on that stage. I'm going to be a company member one day. And like, I'll never forget the first time I ever picked up a check from Dallas Theater Center for, I think it was for a workshop. I walked down there, and I went to the security office, and on the security screen, there was a performance happening. And I turned to the security guard, and I was like, hey, I'm going to perform on that stage sometime very soon.
I
And I
love
told
it.
her that, and she said, are you? And I went, yeah, I am. And I'll never forget, and this is like kind of like jumping around, but like the very first time I did my first performance there, she was there, and she said, you did it. And I said, I did. And I'm thankful for people like you and for like your support. And she was like, I knew you would. She said, I'll never forget that moment when you told me. and and now she's a great friend, and I love her,
Yay.
and
Believe in your
whatever.
dreams, kids.
Yes, believe in your dreams. Speak things into the universe. So I was working on their eighth floor doing education, and then they released, and then my cube mates who did marketing, social media, said, hey, I'm about to put a posting for auditions for the world premiere musical, Hood, a Robin Hood musical adventure. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm reading this cast description, and this like sounds like you, Chris. You should audition. And I was like, really? She was like, yes, you should audition. And I was like, cool, yeah, I think I'll do that. So I auditioned, and the audition went really well. Douglas Cotter Bean was in the room. I don't think that Lewis, his husband, was in the room. Lewis, who wrote the music. I think maybe he was in the room as well. And then Brad, it was the music director. We all got along really well. The audition went really well. And then I made it to callbacks, and then I think another round of callbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the time we were talking, and and I was called to an office, and one of the producers said, "Hey, so here's the thing: you are being highly considered in getting cast in this show, but you are also a full-time employee with us. So this is kind of like muddy waters. This doesn't happen often, So what are we gonna do?" And then I remember after that,
and is that is like the
Kevin
main concern? Is the main concern of that because like you have office hours like 9 to 5, and that's like the same when rehearsals would be?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have office hours, I have responsibilities, and again, it's a world premiere show. Like there's a lot happening. And I'll never forget, Kevin Moriarty, who is our artistic director and, who is just fantastic. I call him my Dumbledore. I go to him anytime, like I have questions and and I need advice. He called me into his office and he said, "Look, like this is a situation. They really want to cast you in these roles, yada, yada, yada." And I remember what was beautiful was he talked to me as my boss. And then he said, "And now I'm going to talk to you as a mentor." And he had two separate conversations with me, as a boss and as my mentor.
And that's something that's really common in this weird artistic performer world, which I find fascinating and crazy, is because, we have to all wear so many hats, and
yes,
and that is something that we all kind of know how to do, like very clearly being like, I'm talking to you in my friend hat. Now I'm your boss. Now I'm your producer. Now I'm your co-actor. And it's wild to me that we are able to do that so well, but keep going.
Yeah, and also like how that's not common in any other business.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so by the end of the conversation, he ended up telling me that what they were going to do was they were going to put me on an unpaid leave as an education coordinator, and then have me throw all my focus into being an actor for Hood. So I had my last day with the company as an education coordinator, and it felt like I was there forever, but truly I was only working as an education coordinator for like 7 months, 8 months, which is wild because it feels like I was there forever. Yeah, and then we started Hood, and that show was incredible. I loved it. I'm so glad that you came down to see it. It was beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't come down to see it. I was in a show.
Yeah, no, you
Dallas.
were coincidentally, yeah.
But I probably would have, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, had I not been there.
Yeah, well, you were too busy kicking ass in another theater in Dallas. So that show opened and closed. I will say,
as your friend who's known that was like your dream for so long, to be in a show like that on that stage, that was a very beautiful moment from the audience. I was in tears the entire time, and everyone was like, "Why are you crying at this silly show?" And I'm like, "You don't understand. It's Chris finally on the stage."
And I will never forget, honestly, in the final moment when we're marching down stage, I remember seeing you mid-house crying, and I remember I cried with you. Like, I mean, it was because like there was an understanding. Like there was, you know what I mean? It's like we did it. You know?
Did it.
So throughout that process, Morgana, who I've already mentioned was my boss in the education department, told me that they were doing some budget cuts, and my new position, let's remember the education coordinator was a new position, was going to get cut. And I was like, okay, cool. So now I'm finished. So I was like, cool. So when I close Hood, I will probably no longer have a job at DTC. Cool. But again, the universe is wild. In that exact same time frame, they were having auditions for Hair, which was going to be in the fall. I'll never forget, Morgana told me that they were cutting my position. And it was mid-afternoon. And I was like, cool. Hey, so I'm going to ask if I can have the day. And I'm going to sign up for Hair auditions for tomorrow. And I'm going to book it. And she said, okay, go. And I went, cool. And again, I just spoke it into existence. I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to look at these sides, and I'm going to look at the Wolf song and everything. And I said, and then I'm going to walk in tomorrow and I'm going to book this show, because I was like, now I need it.
Yeah.
Now I was like, I was so motivated because now I need health insurance. Now I need, income. I was like, all right, we're doing this. This is, whatever. So thankfully I auditioned the next day. It went incredible. And then I ended up getting cast as Wolf. So now we're 2 shows in back to back, essentially, with the Dallas Theater Center.
Making a name for yourself.
Yes. And I remember around that time, there was already rumblings that they were looking for some new company members. And I remember some of the stagehands backstage being like, man, this doesn't happen often. Like getting back-to-back bookings like this in prominent roles, and I heard that they're getting they want a new company member. Like, I think that you'd be a really good fit, and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, well, obviously, like, that would be amazing, because, let's not kid ourselves. Like, I made it clear that was a goal of mine. So, like, I made it very clear to the company that was my goal within the next 2 to 3 years. And I remember our managing director saying, I think that's a fantastic idea and a wonderful goal. Thank you for letting me know. So I did hair. And then now I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, so I am once again unemployed. And
artist like stress.
But I am getting work as a theater artist.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, David Lozano, who is a brother of mine, he is the artistic director of Cara Mia Theater. And I coincidentally went to like an opening night party, and he was like, hey, we actually just received a grant and are thinking about adding a part-time education coordinator job. This is wild. And he was like, are you interested? And I want to say, when he offered this to me, I was still working with DTC, and I was like, thank you for the offer, but I'm actually still working at DTC. So when Morgana let me know that they were dropping my position, I remember within a week, I was like, hey, David, let's have a meeting. Let's talk. Yeah. So here we are again at the beginning of the fiscal year in September, and I'm starting another new job, but this time part-time. So, like, again, I'm taking an even more of a pay cut.
Yeah.
And I told David, I said, listen, this is a part-time job. So my approach is that I'm going to start living a full-time job as an artist, and this will be my part-time job. And he was like, that sounds great. And that's what I did for 2 years. I was a part-time education coordinator with Cara Mia Theater, doing Latino theater, which was incredible. And then also mostly doing shows at DTC and other equity theaters in Dallas. And then by the end of the 2 years, I got a call and said that Kevin wanted to meet with me. When was I available? They didn't say what it was for. I accepted, and I very strategically and symbolically, because I'm a loser. I'm not a loser, but I
think we've made it clear this episode that you are not a loser.
I'm just sentimental,
Yes.
and
yeah.
I was like, if this is the meeting that I get an offer to join the company, I want to wear my culture's flag. And I wore a shirt with the Mexican flag on it. And I walked into his office, and Kevin wasn't there. And I sat down, and the first thing I saw was a contract in front of me in my chair. And Kevin walked in, and he let me know. He was like, hey, I'm going to we've been really impressed with your work. We've had our eye on you for years, but even when you were a teacher, a full-time teacher, but you were a full-time teacher, and it was difficult for us to get you in here. And he's, and he let me know, which, like, it really meant a lot. He said, the amount of conversations we've had with theaters around DFW that you worked with, to just hear about your work ethic and hear how you are in the rehearsal room, have been extensive. So it's led up to this moment, and we'd like to offer you this position as a resident company member. And man, what an incredible like moment of this is what I've worked a long time for.
Yeah. And you made it happen. And I think the key there is you really, really did work. I mean, even just like getting your college education and the struggle of like going through all of those hoops and then figuring it out in Dallas, building your career, like you put in the work to get there and it paid off.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy. And again, you know, and to have gone through the true trauma of where I was in my life as an educator, and for that to be stripped away from me, and then just like having to inch and crawl myself to that, it was such, you know, and to be able to step back and say, oh my God, that was quite honestly the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Yeah.
You
The
know,
very best
I mean,
thing.
it hurt. It really hurt. And there was, I didn't shed a lot of, you know, the whole time, the only time that I really broke down and allowed myself to grieve was the moment I found that my kids made it to state. Like that, like when I got the news that they made it to the finals, that was the moment after, like, that was like a month of just built up everything. I had not shed a tear up until that moment. And I remember I went outside in a parking lot in downtown and I wailed. I had never cried like that in my life. I wailed to the moon, to everything. I screamed because I was proud and I was sad and I was angry and I was every single thing. I just let loose, and those people, there's drunk people partying like, what's happening with that guy? And just to know that all that pain was for something, you know, and now I'm in a place where I'm so fortunate to get to create, you know, back to what I said when I started this, I get to create and connect with people and reach out and have very real conversations with them. And not only that, I get to do it with students. I get to do it with kids through Project Discovery. I get to perform for little Latino kids in the audience that look just like me, that are just like me. And they're watching me. And I hope that they are getting inspired like I was inspired when I was their age. And there have been times when we finish a show and a brown kid will walk up to me and say, man, to hear Spanish or to see a Mexican man play this role that I never thought a Mexican would play means the world to me. And to have a 17-year-old kid tell you that, it's the best feeling in the world.
I mean,
like it really,
but I mean,
is.
It's so true too. Like I mean, it meant the world to me during Hood, and I was trying to do the same for other people. You know, like I was already grown up some, and it still meant so much to see you on that stage, especially in that show, which wasn't like a Latino struggle show.
At all.
That was just an incredible moment. So we did it. We're there.
Lo hicimos, sí se puede.
We can do it, and we did do it. Then the pandemic comes along.
Great.
And things are a little crazy.
Uh-huh.
During the pandemic, obviously, theaters have shut down. So DTC shut down. A lot of things have shut down. How has that been for you? Just like quick summary, you know?
Yeah, man, you know, it has not, truly, like any other artist will tell you, it has not been easy. We were getting ready to do a show, a world premiere. Well, I guess it was kind of a world premiere. It's called American Mariachi, and it was a co-pro with the Dallas Theater Center and the Goodman. And
in Chicago.
Everything shut in Chicago. And everything shut down the day before our first preview. So we got one shot. We got one shot to record, to do the show. and archive it and then give it to the audience. So it was our third run with all the elements, all the technical elements. It's a miracle that we got through, and we got to perform it for friends and family. So there was like 70 people in the audience, and that's the only time we ever got to perform that show for people.
Yeah.
And of course, I got on unemployment like everyone else, trying to be optimistic of what we're gonna do. At around the fall, Dallas Theater Center, we had some meetings with Dallas Theater Center and their board, and it was determined that they were going to because we were all independent contractors, they were going to put us as full-time staff members. And Dallas Theater Center throughout the pandemic truly has been amazing. They refused to let anybody go amidst the pandemic. So there were no layoffs whatsoever. Yeah, it really was.
That
there were
is
no layoffs
absolutely
whatsoever.
Incredible, and I just have to give them a big shout out for that. I know a big majority of the problem is that a lot of the theaters don't have the financial support to do something like that. But to hear one that does and that actually does do that for the artists is absolutely incredible and should be commended. So thank you, Dallas Theater Center.
Absolutely. And honestly, and thank you to our donors who were able to donate and make that possible as well. So it became that became a huge part of the conversation is how can we take care of the face of our company? How can we take care of our 8 resident acting company members? So the decision was made through grants and gifts to make us full-time staff members so that we are getting paid weekly like everyone else. So thankfully in the fall I was able to get off unemployment and know that I had some job security. And the plan was that we were going to create theater the best that we could. And we came up with our very strict COVID regulation rules, and we're able to do a brand new version of Christmas Carol and film that. And then after that, we did another device piece called Something Grim that we created after that. And then after that, some projects got canceled for a slew of reasons. But what's incredible is that Dallas Theater Center has agreed that, because we're full-time staff members, even if a show gets canceled or whatever may happen, we are still going to receive payment. And we're all, we're like everyone else, we're in a holding pattern and just trying to figure out when we can really move forward. It's looking very likely that in mid-July we will be able to have an outside musical. I don't know if they've officially announced it yet, so I can't say.
Sure.
But
allegedly, speculation, things are maybe trying to happen in the summer.
In the summer, and it's a show that actually means a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to that.
I am looking forward to all of theater coming back. So, are you? I'm a little curious because I kind of have a feel of this region of New York right now. I am hopeful that live performance will come back and be robust when it comes back. People seem to be really hungry for it and excited for it, and I do think the support will be there. How are you hopeful for the return of theater in your area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? Because I don't really know how that market has been devastated. I don't know if there are theaters that have had to close or whatever. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has hit us as hard as it has hit everyone else. We've had a handful of companies that unfortunately have gone under in the past year. I think things are looking very promising for late summer. There's a lot of conversation, and I'm honestly not just in Dallas, but nationwide. I've been fortunate enough to be in a handful of conversations with different theater companies, and it looks like July is going to be like the sweet spot for things starting to really amp up in terms of live theater. And it kind of lines up with what the CDC is saying in terms of herd immunity and mid to late June and hopefully July being a little bit more realistic of things kind of starting to slowly open back up.
I cannot wait. When things come back, are you ready to jump on something? Like, what's next for you?
So right now, I'm in a holding pattern for the potential speculated DTC musical.
Sure.
But as a creative, what's most exciting is I'm in the process of I have co-written and will co-direct a lucha libre, which is Mexican pro wrestling play, and we are set to open July 15th. And the premise of the show is that it is a lucha libre play in Spanish and in English, and every luchador is actually going to be an Aztec god. So our lead characters are Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, and Coyolxauhqui, the moon goddess. And the whole play is going to be a culmination of 8 months of pro wrestling storylines condensed into an hour and a half theatrical experience. So we will have a wrestling ring in the middle of the theater, and there will be lucha masks and real wrestling matches. So this isn't the elaborate entrance of Chad Deity where it's a play with little snippets. Like this is a wrestling show with wrestling matches. And it's just been a dream as a lifelong wrestling fan, and as Mexican, to kind of like grab this and put it in the world of theater and be able to share it with non-wrestling fans in a theatrical way. That by the time the show ends, I really do believe the way it's written and the way all of our test audiences have responded to stage readings, by the time the show ends, the audience will walk away saying, "Wow, I did not expect to feel," and to walk out like having a sense of catharsis, having watched a wrestling show. You know what I mean? And I'm just very, very excited about that. We're in the design process right now. It's been cast. It's a beautiful BIPOC cast.
Yay!
And of course, and a beautiful group of designers and just team. And so we are on our way.
That sounds
we have
amazing, and I cannot wait for that.
We have a mixture of trained wrestlers and some people that will be learning to wrestle as well.
Wow, like in the cast is like really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And our fight choreographer is a trained luchador himself, so he's going to train the untrained people, and of course the people that we've cast that are already professionals will kind of help lead the way. But it's going to be great. That's
so fun and cool, and I can't believe those like worlds haven't melded together before now. So I can't wait. That sounds so. That just is so cool. Oh my god, I can't wait for that. And thank you so much for being on this episode of the podcast, Chris. It's been wonderful to hear you, and I hope the listeners love hearing your story because it's amazing to me, and it's just is amazing in general, and I want them to love it. How can they find you if they want to look you up and find out more? If they want to follow you, is there any way you would prefer them to find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm truly not very active on Twitter, except for like retweets of wrestling stuff. But either way, you could find me with the same name. It's Chris Lewin, Llewyn Ramirez. If you type in Chris Lewin Ramirez on Twitter or on Instagram, you will be able to find me. I'm much more active on Instagram than I am on Twitter. That's Chris Lewin.
And I'll have that in the episode description for you all to go click and find him.
Awesome.
Yay. Thank you, Chris.
Other than that, thank you for having me. And I hope to maybe come back another time. And I can't wait to go to New York to give you a big hug and kiss.
Yay. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
And that was the wonderful, wonderful interview with Chris Ramirez. He is so amazing and so passionate about life and what he does. And I hope you guys found it as inspiring as I am inspired by Chris. He's just a true treasure of a human being. And that's why he was my best man at my wedding. Remember that, Matt?
Yeah, he was.
He
gave a real nice speech.
He did. And there's a Hamilton reference and everything. It was great. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this episode. It was a really great one. If you liked it, be sure to rate, review, all those things. But most of you have done that already. But now, if you can, please, please, please share the podcast. If you're really liking it and you think maybe other people may like it, go ahead and share it. Apple and Spotify make it easy. You can share the link to your story or whatever, or your Facebook post or whatever. That really helps the podcast get out there. There's not any what's the word I'm looking for? There's not algorithms on TikTok that can push a podcast out there. The way podcasts get out there is by word of mouth. So we depend on you for that spreading of the word of mouth. And we also depend on you to keep me accountable and keep me going and making sure that you get some weekly positivity and some inspiring stories to your phone inbox every week. Isn't that right, Matt?
Yeah, and if you have any guest suggestions, that could really help out. If you know someone that you think would be a great guest on the podcast, feel free to send them Joshua's way.
Yeah, we want to make this for you guys. So if you have people that you want me to feature and learn about their stories, send them my way. It's gonna be great. And there are a few interviews coming up that I can't wait for. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to the episode one last time. And as always, keep sweet.